Indeed. All right. Welcome to Council Club. It is Thursday, July 15th somehow. I can't believe we're already halfway through July. All right. So the bulk of our meeting is probably, well, we were thinking the bulk of our meeting was going to be talking about budget stuff because that is right around the corner. But last Tuesday, just a couple days ago, Tuesday's meeting was pretty heavy. Did anybody watch? I know I saw a few faces at City Council, but the rest of you kind of watched it. There was a lot going on. It was kind of dramatic. And I'm going to pull up our notes here. I also just dropped the link to the next week's agenda in the chat. I'm going to ditch that for a second. Yeah, there was just a lot going on Tuesday. I guess, we did talk a little bit before we hit record, but just so that everybody's kind of on the same page about the storm. That was something that was actually discussed quite a bit at pre-council. Last week at Council Club, we kind of talked about like, oh, do people go to pre-council? I had a really busy day, so I wasn't able to go, but Scott actually did go to pre-council for the first time. And said it was a packed house. Do you want to give it?
I think even Dr. Aaron, who has attended one before, she said that it was one of the more, if not the most packed. And then Alexandria Stone from, I think, KETV, she showed up after me and she kind of was just like, is everyone here for pre-council? Like and so for the first, I think it starts at 10:30. The first half hour was just talking about the storm, and OPPD did basically a presentation. And then when fast forward to actual city council, they didn't talk about the storm really at all. And so I kind of feel like that pre-council, this is before Mayor Stothert did her press conference at 3:00. That pre-council should have been recorded. That should have been a press conference. But there's a lot of useful information. They talked about food pantries. Obviously they talked about power lines being down. They talked about tree debris. There's a lot of good questions. It got a little bit like pat you on the back. You're all doing a great job. Hell of a job, Brownie, if anyone remembers Katrina. It was a little bit, but it was interesting. And again, they talked about it for a half hour. And then after that, the room cleared out. As soon as OPPD was done talking about the storm, everyone left. There was people there from Public Works, Parks, the fire chief, Dan Olson, was there. I think someone from the police department was there. It wasn't Chief Todd, but the mayor was not there. And people kept at one point they were thanking the mayor. And I was kind of thinking like, at this point, the mayor had been completely absent. So I guess that's just what you say when in a tragedy, thank the mayor, even though he had not really done much at that point.
I guess I have a quick question, and this is a question for all of you because I don't know the answer to this. I was in city council on Twitter, kind of like trying to live tweet what was happening. And then I saw the mayor just announced a 3:30 press conference. And I was like, I found out about it while I was sitting in city council. And did anybody else know ahead of time that was when she was going to have a press conference? Yeah, like what is their communications team doing?
So right before David Earl on KETV, he posted a tweet that said, and kind of praised, rightfully so, the CEO of OPPD. I forget his name, but I think I've seen maybe 3 or 4 at this point. They did a press conference Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They were doing press conferences every day at 4:00. And man, I was just like, this guy should be our mayor. Like he is taking the hard questions and giving good information and,
displaying empathy.
Yeah. And so David Earl said, man, these OPPD press conferences are great, but now we're going on 80 plus hours. And the CEO of Omaha has been completely, I don't know what term he used, but just
absent or radio silence or something.
Because I was beginning to ask people too. I'm like, has anyone actually seen the mayor? Like, yeah, she's up there on the 7th floor. And I'm like, no, have you actually physically seen her? And no one, at that point, no one said, no, you know what, actually haven't seen her. So I do feel like David Earl's tweet kind of put a fire under her. There was a press conference on Monday with the Parks Director, Kalsevich, and Jim Tyler. I want to say sewage related.
Yeah, environmental.
And at the very end of that press conference, I think it might have been Reese Reports asks, very bluntly, where's the mayor? And then Carrie Murphy kind of chimes in like, oh, she's been here. Like, why isn't she here right now? She had a previous engagement. I'm like, what's more important? Like, what are you doing that you can't come and give a press conference?
And
so,
also sometimes plans change. Like, I know you wanted to be at the golf tournament, but like then the city got blasted. So like maybe be able to adapt. And no, I don't think anyone has seen her at the golf tournament either, Cindy. That was one of my questions too, is like, she's talking about how she had to like be there to make sure that Omaha looked good. It's like, well, if you were there for all this press stuff, where is it? Because no one has seen anything about her.
And she kept saying that Omaha looked good on TV, which means she's watching on TV.
Yeah, there was just conflicting messaging and just overall poorly handled.
And though she said that she's never in the office on Saturday and Sunday, I went through and looked at all of her Facebook Live videos. She's been there before on a Saturday and Sunday. Maybe she doesn't go in for, but during the James Scurlock, I believe the first night of curfew was on a Sunday, and so I didn't.
She picks and chooses when she wants to react, and this was clearly not important to her, which is horrifying.
And then the pre-council there's an audio recording of it. You have to request it. We did it once. You have to email the clerk, and it's an audio recording. It moves really quick, but it's pretty much a preview of the entire city council in like 30 minutes, and they go quick. But it was it's good if like we specifically wanted to know about the park rules, and Sarah had pointed out the difference between the words shall and should. And sure enough, they were talking about it they had the city attorney kind of pipe in. So it's great when Dr. Aaron is there kind of giving you a preview, because then you kind of know what to say and what they're going to talk about, one of the sticking points. So yeah, I'll probably go again next week. Because again, 10:30.
Next week we're going to be out of town, which is tragic because there's a lot of exciting stuff happening. But yeah, the short story is pre-council is informative. Could we put in a standing request for the pre-council? Maybe. I like that idea, because then we could just increase accountability and transparency around all of it, and just see what they would do with that request. That would be interesting. Okay.
And it's not like a freedom of information request. It's basically can I have the recording? And there's no doesn't have to be approved. You just have to ask for it. But
and then how quickly do you even get it? Because that's the only thing with that, is if you don't get it like right away, it's not helpful, because it's the same day that the actual council meeting is.
And so it's only good for after the fact. I think the one that we requested, we were pissed about something, and so we're like, what do they say in pre-council? So I definitely don't think you're going to be getting it between 10:30 and 2 o'clock. I doubt that, seriously.
Yeah, good questions, interesting points. All right, cool. We do have someone coming from OAR to talk with us about police budget stuff in a little while. So we are going to just kind of continue to recap Tuesday's meeting until KP shows up. She said that it'd be around 7:45. So when she pops in, we'll just slowly transition to that. But I think the main things from Tuesday, if you were there, the beginning was when there was a rezoning issue. I guess the very first thing was the UNMC Saddle Creek campus, and TOD is really interesting to me, transit oriented development, which is like totally opt-in. There's no teeth to that policy. It's completely ridiculous. The concept is when you're building on a transit line that you would have, wider sidewalks, more walkability, less parking, which there's not really anything about parking minimums. I'm determined between like Mode Shift and the Green Omaha Coalition, Missing Middle, and like maybe this group, we can all work together to squash parking minimums, because that plays into making housing unaffordable, just concrete in general. We have too much of it. It adds to environmental issues, blah, 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 on and on. So we're talking about Saddle Creek. The UNMC plan is there. There is a huge amount of parking, and it's TOD, meaning they are trying to think about transit-oriented development in this project, and yet there are 1,400 parking stalls in a structure, which is in a building of which is 30% of the area is parking.
The biggest building of the new development is the parking structure.
Makes my head explode. It's ridiculous.
It's basically a parking structure with some like other buildings sprinkled around it. So we're building a job. Yeah.
And do you remember when they just did that study on Saddle Creek about how like a huge percentage of the entire area is parking already. Brian, you work at UNMC and you just popped something in here about parking lots have wait lists. Okay, fine. I'm sure that's true. But as long as we continue to say, yes, everyone should drive, and yes, you'll have your parking lots, and we're building more because we see this wait list, we're doing it wrong. We need to start incentivizing other ways of getting around, because we know that we can't do this forever. We cannot continue to just subsidize car culture until we all like are on fire, because that's the path that we're on and it's not working. He shows us the picture, you know, Larry Jobin, here's the giant parking structure. And then Begley is like, is there going to be enough parking? And it's like, yeah, there is. Also, do you know what TOD means? Anyway, yes, great question. UNMC employees, do they get free transit passes? Brian, do you know? They do. Is it utilized much? Do you know?
It's something you got to sign up for. So it's not like you can just swipe because you're an employee. But once you sign up for it, you're in. I think that the Live Green, last I heard, was something like 600 employees participating. I don't think it's all, well, out of the 600 though, that's for all of their Live Green options, not just the, that includes like the carpooling and everything. So That's not just the bus passes. But UNMC and Nebraska Med are, approaching 20,000 employees and students.
So 600 is a drop in the bucket. Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, we have work to do there, mode shifters, that I see on this call. Okay, so we're going to keep kind of blasting through this. The next thing that was upsetting to me is the rezoning issue in Keystone. A developer came and presented an R5 application, meaning residential, but more density, which kind of goes along with my feelings about parking minimums and just like development in general. We can't just continue to sprawl forever. It's not sustainable, yada, yada. So this was an attempt at a zoning change. And there were like some real, y'all know what NIMBY means? NIMBY as an acronym for not in my backyard. Okay, peace here. We'll let her in. Anyway, so some real NIMBY type folks showed up at the meeting and we're like, we don't want renters here. This is an established neighborhood and we want people that are proud of their properties. And I was just like, oh God, okay, that's terrible. And you're all not good neighbors. Anyway, so that was kind of upsetting. And then Cindy, one of the Cindy's on the call, stood up because the paying back the county for the municipal elections, just the primary, was over $600,000. And so Cindy stood up and said, yes, how about ranked choice voting? It'll save us all money. So that was short, but an interesting thing that we should probably keep bringing up. And then the big conversation was number 44 and number 45, which were the land bank appointments. So 44 was actually changing a previous voting member to a non-voting member. It turns out it's because she moved from District 2 to District 3. So that got approved. So she is appointed, but now is a non-voting representative in District 3. And then the voting member that they were attempting to approve in District 2 was Ben Gray. And boy, howdy, that was not a popular appointment. A lot of District 2 residents came to testify, saying, we very clearly said no more Ben Gray. Like we voted for new leadership. Not only did we vote for Juanita, we all decided we're done with Ben Gray. So why are you continuing to just shuffle him around and put him in leadership roles wherever you can? We do not want him as our leader in any capacity. And multiple testifiers stood up, like a lot. Very, like even just technical details, how, they'll throw out a bid if you don't have the right type of, the form isn't filled out right. Well, Ben Gray didn't submit his resume. He didn't check the non-compete box. Like there were flaws and omissions in his just technical application, which in some cases is enough to get you booted out. So this was an appointment by the mayor that had to be approved by the city council. Did the mayor conference with Councilor Johnson beforehand? I don't know, but my guess would be probably not. It seemed like it just seemed very just kind of, here you go, pass it, because a lot of times the city council just has act as a quick rubber stamp for anything that the mayor brings to their desk. And so it was kind of refreshing to watch not only a lot of great testimony, but then the council split. And the most exciting part was, okay, it was very complicated. And then KP, we'll pass it off to you. Thank you for being here. So they voted. So Councilwoman Johnson made a motion to deny the appointment. and then they voted on that, and that did not pass. So then there was a motion to approve, and that did not pass, but it was split 4-3. So
No, that did, well, yeah, the 4-3, but then,
It did pass, but it wasn't a super majority.
yeah.
yes, so
More
yes,
voted for him than voted against him, but he
yes,
still was in place, right?
yes, because it was the same 3 and the same 4 that voted for
Mhm.
each, the denial and the approval. So there were enough. If it was a regular vote, a lot of times when it requires a super majority, it says very clearly on the agenda, this vote requires a super majority, and it didn't say that on the agenda, which I don't know what that was about. Usually they're better at letting you know, but anyway, so then Palermo was like, are we gonna just vote back and forth all night long? Because we can do this, or we can lay it over, because I'm not gonna change my vote. And so Begley, Johnson, and Palermo all were the ones who were voting against Ben Gray, basically. And so it is laid over for a few weeks for the mayor to get back with the community, hopefully, to do a better job of finding a more reasonable applicant. It was a lot. It was like a lot. And then before, the other thing that was exciting was before they realized that it required a supermajority, everyone in the audience left in a huff because everyone was pissed that, like, obviously their impassioned, brilliant, like well put together testimony didn't do anything as per usual. So they all leave, and then there's some like scrambling. So I go racing out to the lobby to be like, guys, come back, it's actually not over. So some of them had already left, some of them came back, and then yeah. So it was kind of exciting. I really like it when there's, you know, not rubber stamping going on. Like there's actually kind of discussion. Ben Gray was called to the stand by Amy Milton, who is like a mini me of Stothert, and was like, well, the mayor's the mayor. And, you know, because there was like, well, the voters said that they don't want Ben Gray there anymore. And someone, it was either, might have been Harding or Melton, were like, well, also the voters voted for Stothert, and she's the one who gets to make the appointment. It was a lot of drama, but it was pretty interesting, kind of fun to watch. And then, yes, there was some talk of backstabbing. It was, y'all should watch it. If you didn't see it, like, pull up the replay, because it was kind of a lot. And yes, I think probably maybe safe to say none of us on this call voted for Stothert.
Only 10% of Omaha voted for
Yeah,
Stothert.
pretty much no one voted for Stothert, but sadly it was still enough to get her in there. So gross. I feel like that's a great segue to KP, who you're flipped, but I can still see you. Thanks for being here.
Am I upside down?
You were sideways.
There
Yay, there you are.
All right, awesome, cool.
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you want to intro yourself. I guess I could just tell
Sure.
everyone that you're delightful KP with OAR, Omaha Abolition Research Group, which is basically a group of nerds that are studying budget stuff and just ways to actually help our community be safer, which, as maybe KP will enlighten us, doesn't necessarily involve more funding going to the police. Currently, over a third of our general fund budget goes to the OPD. There are some agenda items later on down the list that are, you know, more tasers and body cameras and over $1 million for uniforms. But police budget, police money is something that's on the agenda pretty much every week. So we are getting ready to see, the mayor will bring the proposed budget to the council on the 20th, and then the public hearing is on August 3rd. KP, take it away from there.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm KP. I think this group is awesome, and I will probably start showing up more often just because I want to be more plugged into council. I think it's cool that you're all here. Yeah, I kind of personally think that the public hearing on the budget is kind of like it should be a big deal for anyone who wants to take up like anything with the city. So I feel like more people should turn out to this budget hearing annually anyway. It's like a civic engagement thing, and we should be challenging the city about their spending a little bit more, because, you know, in my book, spending reflects priorities or lack thereof. And if we want to get anything done, we got to start talking money. But yeah, our particular group, just to tell you a little bit about it, started last summer with all the conversation about the police. We had a lot of personal friends, my partner and I, asking about how to get involved in this issue. And my partner comes from a labor organizing background. We both have worked for municipal government, so we know a little bit about the inside. And we decided to kind of deploy in this way because our conversation was about police abolition and prison abolition. A lot of the folks we were talking to were coming from a stance of like, can we please just like start dialing this back, this like the scale and the budget for police, and like being like sort of like weaponizing like the city against our community is really scary. And we want to see steps in the other direction, not the police budget ratcheting up and up and up every year. Because, you know, it not only does it kind of like feel really like dubious and maybe a little bit more unsafe, depending on who you are. Some people feel really safe with a lot of police funding. Some people don't, just depends on where you live and who you are. It also takes resources away from other initiatives and from like the ability to possibly spend funds on creative safety initiatives or proven safety initiatives. So our group is talking a lot about that, doing a lot of research into what other cities are doing, what our city could be doing. Just down the road in Lincoln, Nebraska, their city government just started talking to White Bird Clinic of Eugene, Oregon, which is a nonprofit that helps start the Cahoots program, which they deploy trained responders who are civilians and not police, who are unarmed, and whose job it is to connect people in crises with resources and like on-site crisis counseling. And that program has been working really, really well for a number of years, and they're now acting as consultants with City of Lincoln and working on a police alternative in that way of deploying trained mental health professionals and crisis intervention people instead of cops in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I don't know. To me, it's like kind of a no-brainer. I'd like to see a future where we handle conflict differently and where we handle problems at a more root level with, you know, instead of, for example, shuffling homeless people around the city, trying to ensure that they have their needs met, trying to connect them with the things that they need. And you know, there's so many other instances of that too. The way traffic stops are handled, the way mental health responses handled by police is a little bit disturbing and has had bad outcomes, as with the Zachary Bear Heels incident. So yeah, we have some really like tangible examples in our city of how like things have not worked with police being deployed. And I think we have a really good argument to sort of do what Lincoln is doing and try some new things, or at least scale back the police department and the police budget a little bit in favor of providing resources that benefit the masses a little bit more. So that's my like big soapbox. I don't know if you guys like want to ask questions. I feel like I'm going to be passing off a pamphlet this weekend to Sarah to send out to whoever she's got on her contact list, so that you guys can read more about like the budget numbers and what this looks like from a like nitty gritty data perspective. But I think that's kind of my big picture if anyone wants to talk about it.
No, that's awesome. I think that it is really interesting to see the actual numbers, because when you look at the amount of money that goes to police, it is so much money. It's more money than all of the other departments combined when you don't include you know, other emergency response stuff. So it's like, you know, school, well, just everything. It's everything. And
Yeah.
we do have information out there, like the Sherwood Foundation, for example, did a really beautiful study on how we could actually tackle our housing crisis, you know, and so we know that there are certain numbers attached to some of these big issues that we have that we could solve if we actually were looking at some of these crimes at their root. So, and I mean, I will just also echo, like, budgets are moral documents. Like, what you spend is what you care about. So if, and you know, I don't think anyone's against public safety. I think the concept is like, what does public safety mean, and how can we actually fund initiatives that will keep our community safe? And a lot of studies and a lot of information shows that the most safe communities are the most well-resourced communities. And so it's not, you know, right now we're seeing, and a lot of it's just kind of like a narrative around violence is up and crimes are up, and like, yeah, but also so is police funding in Omaha. Like, we're spending the most we ever have on police, and we're also like have a decent amount of violent crime. So we know that the two numbers aren't correlating, you know, like, it's not like, oh, the more you spend on public safety, aka OPD, the safer things get. We know it's not working. And so I'm not really one of those like all cops are bastards people. I'm just like, why don't we actually look at the most efficient way to take care of our community? So a lot of conversations around it, but
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of ways to feel about it. I feel like there's a lot of reasons why you might come to this issue. And we just posted on social media about that, like reasons why you should take action around this issue. Like if you care about safety, this is a reason to reallocate resources, because we can do safety more creatively, and we can take like weapons out of situations that don't need them too, like traffic stops, which is like the big place where people get killed by police is in a traffic stop situation. We don't have to have them there. So like safety, if caring about safety is one way to come to this issue. Like if you're like super worried about people that are harmed by police in prisons, about people like having their lives taken away, or having their careers impacted by imprisonment, if you're worried about like the disproportionate effect that has on BIPOC, like then
or if you also if you've ever been told that like bike lanes are too expensive, or if you've ever been told that we can't do recycling in Benson anymore because we don't have the money, it's like, we do have the money, it's just where do we put the money? And so I think it's important to make sure that we're not acting like we're operating from a point of not having enough. It's like, we have a lot of money. The Omaha city budget, I actually don't know the exact figure right off the top of my head, but we have a lot of money. We just spend it in ways that aren't necessarily doing good. You know, we're defunding libraries, we're defunding public schools. And so it's just a matter of like reprioritizing and where the money could go that would actually do the most good for the community. And I like this, what Brian just said, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So also I see Cindy Maxwell, and pronounce your last name once you come off mute because your hand's raised. We're always like Ostick. Is that how you say it?
Cindy Maxwell Ostick.
Ostick. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a few people in different branches of the family that pronounce it differently. So that's how my husband's branch pronounces it. I did have a question though, and this is really great information. How does it work with the public interaction on the budget? Do they have the experts from each department there to kind of take question and answer about each line item, or how does that work, please?
Yeah, good question. This is something that our group would like to start advocating more for too, and it really aligns with Sarah and what she does. We just want to see more transparency around the budget process and more input from the community too. So the way that it works is like department heads start submitting their budgets like in the late fall and early winter. The mayor comes out with the budget and will present it to city council, I believe next Tuesday. And I don't believe they go through it necessarily line by line, but she does a presentation about the budget at that city council meeting. So you guys, I'm sure, will be tuned in to watch that.
Yeah, so actually on August 3rd, which that is the night, which yes, is the same night as neighborhood night out, which is terrible because we want people at City Hall talking about these things so that's an unfortunate conflict. But also on August 3rd, starting at 1 o'clock, there isn't a regular 2 o'clock council meeting on August 3rd. It is starting at 1 o'clock. They're going to be doing department budget hearings in the legislative chambers. So it's going to be when the department heads present. I think it's not going to be as much as we'd love, like a rundown, like a line by line. It won't be, it's never as in depth as I wish it were, because a lot of this stuff is super confusing. Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. We're going to do a screen share on something really quick so that we can all look at this together, because here is kind of the overview. Can everyone see that okay?
Yeah, the budget will be available for reading after next Tuesday too, the new 2022 budget.
Yes. And that's why I'm bummed. I mean, I'm happy we're going to be out of town. Thank goodness. We were supposed to go out of town right after the election because we need a break. We're postponing it. We're leaving Sunday through Tuesday. But I really like it when the mayor does the budget delivery, because she's like, everything is great. And I've written the most beautiful document ever. And you're all going to approve it and love it. And so I said, I'm going to miss the histrionics. But anyway, so that happens on Tuesday, the 20th, this coming Tuesday, which when we get into the agenda, we'll kind of go through that. But then I wish that it showed, yeah, okay, so here, exactly right. So this 1 o'clock's when of course, look at right here when we talk about priorities, who comes first? The police, 1 o'clock. That's when the department, gets to make their pitch. Fire comes next, Parks and Rec, Convention Visitors Bureau. Anyway, so you can kind of see the whole rundown there of when everything gets discussed. And then the important dates, again, as far as like the public hearing, is that night at 6:30. So I'm going to stop screen sharing if everyone's looked at that long enough.
Put it in a chat too.
Yeah, okay, good idea. We'll put that in the
It's on
chat.
the next report.
Oh, geez. Indeed. Here you go. You want to look at it yourself. And then Cindy, you've got your hand raised. What do you want to know?
I'm so sorry. I have all these
No, that's
questions.
what we're here for. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Not at all. We're all learning together. Go for it.
So I saw in the bottom that there was a planning. Is that where disaster planning would come from?
I
And
doubt
then
it.
I'm
It's probably
curious
more
about-
like zoning type planning.
Okay, so then I'm also curious about public health. Which department or line section does that come from?
A lot of that's going to be county stuff, it seems like. Yeah. As far as this goes, I mean, I don't really even know, aside from like human rights and relations, but that's obviously more specific than what I think you're looking for. Don't really have the answer to that. I feel like a lot of the stuff that we have been following, like with the pandemic and stuff, is all coming through the county, which, I had a county board member actually reach out and say, oh my gosh, council club, you should do it for county. And then someone else, like, you should do it for the legislators. So, slowly but surely, world domination will dissect all of it in the name of transparency. But
then also, I mean, just, I know KP and Sarah have brought up cahoots, and we've actually heard the word cahoots brought up at Douglas County Board by Mary Ann Borgeson. And I think they are still talking about it. So KP, do you know if you would see, or do we think that we're going to see cahoots first at the Douglas County level, and then would that be adopted by Omaha Police?
in my opinion, the county and the city should work together because they both have funding and they both have public
Yeah.
safety needs, and that would be a beautiful relationship, but that would also
Right.
help communication, which is no one's strong suit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, I don't know what would come first. I would hope that the city will consider adopting it. They've had a mental health crisis response team for a while that's supposed to be deployed in tandem with police. I would like to see, the special thing about cahoots is it's separate from police, and I would like to see this crisis response team be totally outside of the police department and considered like sort of a health rescue, like its own type of thing.
So what just happened is
Yeah.
on this last Tuesday, I don't remember what item it was, but it was the mental health co-responder team is being extended, and they are actually taking over from Lutheran Family Services, I think, was the co-responder team that was doing the mental health crisis, because they would send someone from that program and someone with a gun to a mental health emergency. And by 2024, it's going to be completely absorbed into the city, and Lutheran Family Services is going to be out, and it's going to be completely in the police. So I guess it's going in not a direction that is quite like what some of us would maybe like to see. And I also think that, you know, there was a little bit of public testimony around that last Tuesday, and someone said, which I agree, ideally, like, why do we have to send people with guns? Like, that's only going to elevate, you know, like when you're having a meltdown, you don't need somebody to show up with a gun. That just escalates instead of de-escalates. Or even, could they not go in plain clothes, like just not looking like a SWAT team member? I mean, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement, but that's something that whenever Marianne Borgeson, since she was the first one that, when she brought it up without like me being like, hey Marianne, have you heard of this? I was like blown away. It's like, yes Marianne, very good. And I even emailed her and I said, this is excellent, like I think you, thank you, and maybe let's talk to the city, could we get that going? And then when we sat in, they had like a listening session, actually, the Douglas County commissioners did, which I was like, that's a really great thing, you should do that more often. And it was about mental health, and there was a lot of folks on that call that were not doing well. I mean, a lot of us are not doing well. And so it was interesting to have the community come out and just talk, you know. And I think that it was pretty eye-opening for the commissioners. And I think that part of the issue that they were talking about is there's just not even enough capacity at hospitals. So like part of the issue is when, you know, someone calls 911, when someone's having a crisis and the police show up, they don't arrest them. They just bring them to the hospital, and then they either have to just wait unattended there for a really long time, and then they just go back. So it's not actually addressing the issue. And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of these scenarios look like, is we're not actually fixing the problem. So it's just a Band-Aid that's just going to fall off, and then you got to Band-Aid it again. And
yeah. Or not a Band-Aid, like, or making stuff worse. Like if you drop someone with a substance problem off at jail, like, how are they going to do in jail? Are they going to do better? Probably not. Like, you know, so I don't know. There's other groups around the country that are doing this sort of work of like asking questions about these budgets and stuff. One of them is called Care Not Cops. And I think that is like part of what a lot of them are getting at, is just like, you know, like, can we please not penalize, criminalize our communities, make things really worse for them? Can we offer instead care and resources and really like use our funds in a smart way, like you said, Sarah? So I think, yeah, that's definitely like where our group is going with it. And we're hoping that people will come out August 3rd to bring their own agendas to the budget, firstly, but also to like ask critical questions about the police budget, because it goes up a significant amount every year. It has grown, I believe, like 65% in the last 10 years is what we found out, which seems absurd. Like our population has grown 7.8%. So it's not because our population has grown. And it just feels like an inordinate amount of resources, considering that it's crime is also falling, and crime is going on its own little up and down regardless of what we do with police. The two are not correlated. That is something that research strongly backs up, that police budgets and number of police is not correlated with crime stats. So yeah, it's heavy.
along those lines, actually, I don't know if everybody is aware, did we talk about this last time? The encryption. So when I was running for office, Omaha Scanner reached out to me, and they were like, do you know, which hopefully I'm not outing Omaha Scanner right now, but anyway, they said, do you know that the police are hoping to get all of their channels encrypted? Which would be a big problem for transparency, not just for Omaha Scanner, but just like that's problematic for a lot of reasons. And so that's something else that I think a handful of us are kind of keeping an eye on, because it would have to go to council for approval. I don't know, KB, have you heard anything else about that?
I haven't. I'm not surprised, but I'm disturbed a little.
Yeah, so just something else to kind of keep an eye on. And it's like, we're talking about transparency because that's what, you know, with body cams and such, it's in the name of transparency, and it's like, oh, except for that when you want to see it, then you can't see it. So, but this would go certainly the wrong direction as it pertains to transparency. So, oh, also, yeah, do you want to talk about this part, Scott?
Yeah, there's been there's actually two things. I think there's a 24th and Lake neighborhood. Is it 360? Is that what it's called? Omaha 360? Or no? What's the name of the group that meets with the cops to talk once a month?
Maybe it is 360, although it should be 180.
But Noise had a small clip of the police saying that every Friday and Saturday night, the police said that there was a riot down on 24th and Lake. And like the neighborhood and the people that weren't police were shocked, just like, you said the word riot? And they're like, yes, it is a riot. And so from the police perspective, they think there's a riot every weekend at 24th and Lake. And then I heard, I haven't been able to find it, but there was another press conference or something where William King from 95.7, The Boss radio station, which I believe his studio is right there in North Omaha. He blew up on the police because he's a former parole officer, and I believe he was saying that we don't need more police down here. We need
resources.
Yeah, other things.
Jobs, food, grocery stores, schools,
Anything else?
after school programs. Yeah, like there's no shortage of things that they are asking for. All of those requests are not heard. And so anyway, so on the 3rd, it's going to be a very, Stephanie says 5 more Black people in one place is a riot. Unfortunately, I believe that is kind of what we just heard from the police. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's tough. It's because it's deadly. And it's, I don't know. We could talk for a long time about all that. And KP and I kind of sometimes do, but we're going to keep probably moving along with other stuff on a little bit more from last Tuesday before we jump into next Thursday. Obviously KP, stay or go, whatever works for you. Does anybody else have any final questions on Terry?
So KP, what are you expecting? I mean, I know you don't know for sure on August 3rd. Are you thinking there's going to be a lot of people coming to testify? Are they going to limit our amount of time? Is there any way to bring photos? Like, I have so many photos from the protests of 72nd and Dodge, police and military gear, armored vehicles, city buses, video of city buses pulling up into the intersection, and SWAT teams pouring out. I mean, can you when you testify, can you bring those pictures and ask
You
the city
should bring them
council
and
why?
describe them. That would be great. Like, you get 3 minutes to talk. You could join up with other people and have like joint testimony that goes back to back to back into one long thing, like, which, some people are talking about doing that. But yeah, you could bring your photos and describe them and be like, these people are in riot gear. Like, they are like in a tank, like
on horseback. Cool. There were snipers on the do space. I mean, like with young people holding cardboard, and that was OPD's response. So
This logistic, there is a video projector or an overhead projector that you can bring. So I've seen people bring their phone, and you can zoom in on, you have them on your phone. If you want to print them out, you can definitely show them. And then just as a recap, last year's budget hearing was intense. There was a bunch of people testifying specifically 59. About this. And I believe Bear Alexander's pro-Black was outside protesting. It was a scene. So I'm sure this year is I hope it's gonna be something to be seen, and definitely participate.
We're hoping to make it an event. It could be like we're hoping to get a food truck there. We have a tiny cardboard cop car with a little siren that we can drive around. Yeah, it's got money flying out of it. But we're hoping it will be good turnout. There was I think 65 people total testified last year. 59 of them were against the budget for police budget reasons. And so we're hoping to have at least as many this year. We'll just see. The atmosphere is different, but we also have a better opportunity to spread the word, and people are more aware this year. So I'm thinking people will come much more prepared with better arguments and more coherent things to say, which will be really great. So I hope I see you guys out. I'm also like kind of interested because it seems like the way city council has acted and the mayor has acted in the past, a lot of people feel like the police budget is sacred for some reason, like it's untouchable, and there's no, we can never decrease funding or flatline that budget. I don't really understand why that is. If we can do that with any of the other budgets, why not that one? That one's the biggest piece of the pie. And really, like, our only opportunity to speak about the way that city council spends its money, or the city's money, is at this one public hearing a year. We don't have any opportunity to talk about like the endowments that the city has or anything. We only get to talk about the general budget fund once a year and the city's spending priorities once a year. So like, I hope for that reason, like, and the fact that people are more engaged now that we have like a lot of people come out and complain, we should be having more.
Yeah. There's also, so there's a couple, there's so many things, but so the budget is only one piece of what's being discussed. The CIP, does anybody know what the CIP is? Have you heard of the CIP, Capital Improvement Program? So that is another document that goes with the budget that shows priorities for spending. It's usually like street widening is unfortunately where a lot of the money goes, which we know makes streets more dangerous. Yes, more roads, more sprawl, wider roads, that sort of thing. So Mode Shift actually is kind of working on getting together a CIP team, because a lot of what we do is looking at where funding goes and doesn't go. And we are doing some advocating around sidewalk maintenance, something real fancy like sidewalks that we certainly know we can't even, count on. So that is going to be a presentation next Council Club next Thursday. Will Green, who's a Mode Shift board member, he's also with the Missing Middle team, housing stuff, and he is going to come and talk to us about the CIP, so that before August 3rd, we will be able to have a little bit more information about that as well. But if anyone is interested in like crafting some testimony around any of these things, I am more than happy to work with you on what that could look like. I think OAR kind of maybe have some ideas too, and some sound bites and that sort of thing. I really like the idea of the like back to back testimony, but sometimes they scramble it. So, because they know that would be a pretty powerful tool. I am going to hit enter on a new, as of Tuesday, you can now request a waiver so you don't have to state your address, which is a big deal. Because, when you're testifying, and it's maybe not the police that are going to come after you, although we have heard some activists have been targeted by the police. So I'm not going to say that doesn't happen, but maybe it's the Proud Boys, or maybe it's, the Back the Blue crowd or whatever doesn't like that you think that a penny should be not all the police and it could go to like a library or something. So we are very grateful. A few of us testified. That was something that Council Club all wrote to our city councilors, like at the very beginning of Council Club, because we thought, it doesn't feel very safe or private to have to like say your address in order to testify. And like, what if you don't have a house? And what if, there's just a lot of issues with it around privacy and whatnot. So one of the big goals with Council Club is like reducing the barriers to participation. And we saw that as one to go after. The state actually changed their, I don't know if it's even in.
Yeah, so I remember Cindy Ostick brought up that when you testify at the state legislature, you do not have to give your address. We believe that changed in April. And so we don't know if the state legislator is going to have to go back and basically have a similar waiver. But we also learned that PPD, the power company, they have board meetings and Open Meeting Act. And the default at those meetings is no address requirements. But we believe that also changed in April. So we're kind of a bit of a reshuffling. But man, wow, this city council to be the first one to pass the address waiver in this new sort of era. We have yet to test it, but it's the first, or at the top of the new agenda, this week's agenda. It's right at the top. It says, if you want to dial in by Zoom, here's how you do it. And here's the address waiver. So it's exciting, but yeah, we want to test it. And it's hopefully you have to give a reason. I don't know if you already said that, but you have to give a reason. I feel like I don't know if and unfortunately the city clerk is going to be the one determining whether or not it's a valid reason. I feel like
I think that's better than having someone on council, frankly. Like, I think Eliza is more reasonable probably than some of the counselors. I don't know. And that is, it is a new thing. Like, we haven't had the chance to test it because it literally just got passed on Tuesday and is in effect as of right now. I put the link in the chat if you want to look at the form. But yeah, you have to basically state, it has to be turned in the day before, like when you're registering for Zoom, that has to be done by 4:30 on Monday. So you have to get this form submitted by then, and you have to put your reason and, your information. But I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see if folks use it, how it works or doesn't work. But it felt like a little thing worth celebrating. Between that and then park rules got approved as well. That was exciting for Mode Shift and Bike Walk Nebraska and Parks and Trails and Transportation Advocates. So that was kind of cool. That was number 50 was the address waiver, 49 was park rules. Anything from anybody before we keep rolling along?
and you've got a really good relationship. Sarah has a great relationship with the new parks director. We actually, it's almost like hopeful. I hate to, I don't want
It's
to.
scary to say that word, but we had coffee last Friday. Like, yeah, it was cool. Brian, you got your hand up. What's up?
Well, speaking of the parks and the trails and transportation, how is the relationship with the Vision Zero coordinator? Like, are we in cahoots? Are we working together? Are we finally building something in Omaha with all of these people who now have the authority?
We are certainly trying. So the Vision Zero director is low down on the list of who can actually get stuff done, unfortunately. It's a lot different when it's a department head, and that is what Matt Kalsevich is. And he is the one who was like, hey, can we get coffee? I want to get to know you. I was like, I'm sorry, what? You're obviously new to Omaha. And it turns out he did talk to the mayor about meeting with me, and there were some things brought up that he just like slid in that, like, she knows who I am. He is getting to know who I am. I tried to make it clear that I'm not the enemy. Like, we have a lot of similar goals. Let's work together. I would happily be a liaison between the community and the parks department. Trying to get the same thing going with the Vision Zero coordinator. We are actually going to be, Stephanie here is the new team lead of our walkability committee. And we're talking about doing a walk with us thing where we invite the Vision Zero coordinator and Danny Begley, because there was someone who just got hit by a car driver in Blackstone. And then another pedestrian in Blackstone took a video of how awful it is to walk. And we, during that video, noticed some sidewalk policy violations. So we're going to be trying to do a little bit more outreach with the Vision Zero coordinator and just keeping the momentum going around those types of issues. So we'll see. I'll keep y'all posted. Anything else? All right. Mental health co-responder is getting voted on next week. There was testimony, like we said. Also, the 6% raise for the OPD deputy chief. That was something that got brought up in pre-council, that they did a study of 8 other comparable cities, and 7 of the 8 do not have a pay increase for their second in command. So why do we need it? Because we're trying to be ahead of the game. That's what Chief Schmatter said.
And Palermo actually brought that up during the meeting, and Chief Todd looked right at him and was like, well, I have my own data. And it's just like, the city collects, again, they reached out to, and so they reached out to 8 cities. 1 did not respond. So all 7 that did respond.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's 7 out of 7 that responded don't have this deputy chief position. And then Chief Schmatter was just like, well, you have your data, I have mine.
He's like, some cities do have it. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know. Just, more money. The other thing that you brought up earlier, KP, is why is the police budget sacred? And I wonder, and this is something that's kind of still confusing to me. And I know Destiny is a labor person, and what's up with the 5-year contract? Is that why we can't do anything about the police budget? Because they've already agreed to a 5-year contract that got approved last year for the next, last year plus the next 4 years. It's confusing and convoluted, and I don't understand it.
I think the 5 years is just about the labor agreements.
You're breaking up so bad. Did he sound like that to everybody, or is it me? Okay.
No, he sounded like a robot.
Okay. Robo David, you want to try it again, or should we just? Oh, maybe it's going to come in the chat. I think he's chatting. And yes, the budget is way more than pay and benefits. And that's the other thing. the stuff that, they're approving on the weekly, has that already been determined in the budget that has increased? It's like, okay, the tasers and the body cameras and all that stuff, we already proved that. So I don't know. It's complicated. Do you know the answer, KP?
Well, I mean, so like, why is the budget increasing so much, and does it have to do with the police contract? Is that what you're asking, the like labor contract? I think it does have to do some with the labor contract, because they are negotiating their own raises is what's happening there. And they get locked into like this percentage increase raise a year, but their raises, the raises for like the individual police officers are kind of comparable to the sort of cost of living raises that a lot of the city personnel get. So it's not really like that is so way out of line. So that kind of makes you wonder, if it's not personnel, why is it that the budget's increasing so rapidly? 65% in 10 years is a lot. Like that's a lot. So
Yeah, really.
yeah. I don't know, cars, like helicopter costs.
I
is a
loved it the
lot.
other day. Yeah, when the scanner was just like, Able One is up and flying around waiting for a call. It's like, then land that motherfucker until there is a call. Like, why are we just floating around waiting for something to happen? It sounds like we're in a war zone. It's $400 an hour, I think is what I heard. It's just like,
Full
they crash
disclosure,
all the time.
it flies over my house every single night and disrupts my evening. And that's not why I do what I do, but it's part of it.
Destiny, I don't like that we have 5-year CBAs. What is CBA?
A collective bargaining agreement. So that
Oh,
is
thank you.
what they have. Sorry, speaking union language.
Yeah.
So that is what they do have, and what they approved back in November is when I believe the 5-year CBA passed.
Yeah.
So that is different, and like most of us, I've tried to like read through the actual annual budget and then compare to what happens in the CBA, and I still have not figured out entirely, partially because I'm reading my own CBAs, and so I have like a dozen CBAs in my head at any given time.
Man, sounds fun.
I love it. It's good to know that it doesn't make sense to even people who are like really nerdy about this stuff, which I love. Nerd.
Well, I know that they did have a lot of help from, I'll just go ahead and say it, Senator McDonald. He is the president of the Omaha Federation of Labor as well. And the OPOA had just been reinstated with the Omaha Fed right before their CBA came up in November. So that's why he was there and testifying, or he had other folks testifying on behalf of him. I know like CJ King showed up, who's also the Douglas County chair. So, there's a lot of overlapping there.
That's after CJ stood up and said that the Democrats support the police contract. That was when I re-registered as an independent.
Yeah, and that's the issue. There's a lot of interests that are being overlapped there, I believe, in my opinion.
Yeah, and also like, I think, and I'm not obviously a labor person like you are, but like, to me, collective bargaining agreements make sense when it's like workers' rights. It's not when like the police, who have all the power and all the money, are just strong arming the rest of everyone into whatever they want. It just seems like mob boss is not the same as labor union. And they say that they're a labor union, but they're actually the mob. I don't know.
Yeah. And I fought with that. I know that Scott, he had a tweet that was replied to by the president about, politics essentially. And I don't think that they should have the right to endorse candidates, in my opinion.
Right.
I think that just because the city negotiates with them, I think that anyone that negotiates with the city should not be able to endorse candidates. And, personally, I'm living my life in a way that I will never be endorsed by them.
Right.
And my tweet, it was actually, I was just retweeting a retired colonel, a UNO professor that was on a Joe Biden commercial. Jim Harold teaches at UNO, and he was the one that was that said it. And so it wasn't even my tweet, but yeah, I remember when Tony Connor he said that we're trying to silence him, and I'm like, no, what is it? Money doesn't talk, and and money isn't speech, but money does talk.
Wow.
Wow,
that's-
okay. So we could obviously talk about a lot of this stuff for a lot of hours. It is the top of the hour. The other Cindy had to drop off. Of course, whenever you have to go, you have to go. We are going to keep talking a little bit more about the meeting on the 20th, because there is, I mean, the thing that's probably going to get the most talk, aside from just like the fact that it'll be interesting to hear the mayor's proposal with the budget, is TIF. There's the casino TIF hearing. And again, I'm really sad that I'm not going to be there, because I feel like someone should stand up and say, like, if this is reparations and we want to call it that, then okay. But otherwise, no, we don't need to use TIF for casino building, because so that'll be interesting. There's also Blackstone TIF, which is like another $6 million in TIF incentives to like the hippest, most upcoming, trendiest Kiewit headquarters. Warren Buffett's office is there. Like, let's talk about what blighted means for a minute. I don't feel like Blackstone is the definition of blighted, but I don't make the rules. So those are some interesting ones. Number 44 is police money, body cams, tasers, and body cam footage storage is actually a lot of times what the bulk of some of those are, which is just an interesting workaround. They'll say, oh, it's not for tasers, it's just for the storage for the body cams, but still money that goes to the police. And then, yeah, I think that was like we knew we couldn't talk about everything, but those are the big things. Did anybody else have anything that jumped out at them on the upcoming agenda?
The step up job training was a new one for me. Anything, you guys know anything about Step Up Omaha job training and work experience program? They're getting $500,000 for that.
I think that's good. I think that like anything that is going to go to like helping folks get into the job market, and I haven't heard anything specifically bad about that program. I don't know enough really to be a strong advocate, but I do like when there are programs like that we're giving money to and resources.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the root causes of the problems that people like to complain about can be better solved spending money like this. So I'm all in favor of, if we could not spend $500,000 on police and instead spend it on $500,000 on job training, it seems like a self-solving solution.
Yeah.
So
If only people could think like that, and aren't just so ingrained in like, this is just always the way we do it. This is the way we do it. Because yeah, obviously the way we do it isn't really working very well. And so we need to look at different ways of doing it. And, this is the thing that sometimes kills me about Omaha is we don't have to invent it. We can look at what's working elsewhere. Like KP was saying, there's plenty of programs across the country like that. The Cahoots, the reason I like Kahoot so much is because it's been around since the late 80s. So this is not just like a fad, like a defund the police last year they created. No, it's been around for like 30 years and it's saving them millions of dollars a year. There's also a program, well, whatever, I won't talk about all the programs, but there's a lot of programs out there. We don't have to invent it. We don't even have to get creative. We just have to be able to learn from other cities and then tweak it, adapt it, sure, a little bit because it's Omaha, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can learn about what's working elsewhere and then just have the willpower and the political willpower to do it. So yeah. Ugh, I don't know.
But hey, we have like 7 co-responders. So, why would we need to do that?
Yeah, fixed. Solve the problem. Yeah. What else? Oh, I know what I was going to say. Okay, so just as far as like the budget process, right? So the strong mayor form of government that we have, which PS I think should be rearranged, and I think we should have a hybrid form or strong council because one person making all the decisions for the entire city doesn't work when it's this diverse and this disconnected of a city, and that's another story. But as it stands, it is. So the mayor writes the budget, she meets with her department heads, they all make recommendations, she presents the budget to the city council. The city council, we obviously talked about on the 3rd, we have the opportunity as the peasants to come throw our 2 cents in, and then basically the city council can make recommendations. Like last year, there was a lot of talk about, maybe don't slash the police budget to 0. No one, I mean, maybe there are a few people asking for that, but for the most part, people are like, how about just don't increase it? How about that increase that you were going to give to the police? How about we give that to mental health? Or how about we give that to housing? And just instead of increasing all the time, we're not asking for a 50% reduction or 100% reduction. It's like, let's just slowly, incrementally start seeing what happens. If it doesn't work, okay, fine, like, but let's not militarize the police. Let's not continue to give them all the power, all the money. Let's just see what happens if we strategically fund some other programs. So I believe it was Jerem that did a decent job of standing up for that, but it didn't matter. Festerson didn't vote for that. He still voted for he thought that the increase in the police budget was fine, but he did think that some of our general fund leftovers basically could go to mental health. That all got shot down. And so it was interesting and tragic that the Stothard didn't think that mental health was important and actually made fun of some of the suggestions. And then her own husband died by suicide. Like, it's, when are we going to get real about the fact that mental health in America is not well? So anyway, I don't know. It'll be an interesting budget hearing once again. And so the city council can make recommendations, the mayor can veto it. So it isn't really like we can go in there and say a whole lot that's going to maybe change it. But I also hate saying that, because I still think we should all show up and at least voice our opinions and see if they'll listen to us. And also just let them know that we're not going away, because that's the other thing. Like, if you show up once, that's fine and that's great. And if that's all you can do, that's wonderful. But I think what's really great is to keep emailing them throughout the year. Not just during election season, not just during budget season, but like, get cozy with your counselor, or at least the city clerk. They're helpful. The council also has staff that can be pretty helpful. So yeah, we all have a lot of work to do, but it's kind of interesting. And it's a lot more fun with a bunch of nerds. So thank y'all for showing up. We're at about 8:45. Do you have anything else?
No, I mean, there's some interesting stuff going on. I think we talked about the 5G pole last week, and then they put a 5G pole on a sidewalk.
Yeah.
That got some talk, and it got Council Member Begley. Oh, and I mean, kind of just to circle back to the storm response. I don't know if you guys have seen on the Exarban Neighborhood Association Facebook page, Councilman Begley has actually been not the worst. I know Destiny has kind of been saying that she hasn't seen much from Don Rowe in District 5, but Begley has been posting, always where to drop off your trees. But then a little bit more, just more than what I expect. And Festerson tweeted about it a little bit, but yeah, I remember he was involved in the 5G poll. And then coming up on July 27th, there's a big, it's not a 5G, but there's a big poll going in Festerson's neighborhood. Probably not going to see much, but that's in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Yeah.
One sort of interesting thing is they're voting, like they had public hearing about it, but the behavioral health unit is being absorbed by OPD. So like looking at that, the grand total for that program was 2.5 million. So I would imagine we're going to see at least a 2.5 million increase in the police budget because of that.
Is that's the co-responder thing?
Yeah, they're taking it completely out of like the Lutheran Family Services.
They said by 2024, it will be completely absorbed.
Oh, I see.
Is what I heard at council when they talked about it a little bit. But yeah, that was something that I guess maybe it was right before you hopped in, David, was we were talking about how kind of it's a good idea to have that type of crisis response unit acting on their own. And again, not to sound like a broken record and looking at Cahoots, but Cahoots is out of there. I think it's called the Whitebird Clinic, which is a health clinic that provides the Cahoots service. It's not the police. So, I mean, while I sort of am happy that they have this co-response, like it's like they're thinking about it, but they're still just like, make it the police. And when I had the bike shop, I had police officers that were customers, and they're spread so thin. Like you'd almost think that the police would be into some of these ideas, it's because like, why do we just keep making the police do everything when we could say, you know what, police, you've got a lot on your plate. We're going to help you. You will love this idea. We're going to not make you do everything. We're going to remove this from your plate. Like I think a lot of it is the way that it's framed. I have a lot of feelings as per usual, but yeah.
Yeah, the police in the cities where they have these programs, they love it.
Yeah.
I think there's a problem too with people who are supposed to help you in a crisis showing up with the police, because a lot of people, when the police show up, they think I'm in trouble. Right. Like I'm in trouble. This is like, look at what happened to Nigel just the other week. I'm in trouble. This is like the end. I'm going to jail. You know, like you don't want someone in a crisis reacting that way.
Right.
When you're trying to send them help. So to me, that's one of the ultimate arguments for separating crisis response and intervention from police completely. Like, and additionally to like not have police overseeing that, which is really separate,
Totally.
non-punitive response.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the police response is to like try and make police presence less scary. You know, they try to be involved in the community more and everything, but like they're still carrying guns whenever they interact with you.
Yeah. Well, they can like arrest you and take away your life. And that fact is always present, regardless of community policing efforts and things like that. So like, it's hard for people to not be scared. So yeah, I just think separating services in that case makes a lot of sense.
Totally. I know. I mean, I'm a privileged white girl who has like, I don't have any real reason to be afraid of the police. Like I was raised to believe that the police were there to help me. But even if I'm driving and there's a cop car behind me, I'm like, oh shit, and like, I know that I'm not statistically the color of person that's going to end up dead from a routine traffic stop, but it still scares me, So yeah, I think that there's just a lot of room for improvement. And yeah, we don't even have to invent it. We can just look at what's working elsewhere. So, okay, cool. I'm just seeing if there's anything else in the chat.
Yeah, bring it up to playing basketball with a gun. I always wondered if like, if they check or bump into a cop with a gun and like, is that an assault on a police officer? I mean, I don't think that they're still on the clock. They're definitely, and yeah, what if their gun, man, I was like, what if their gun falls off or goes off? Like, that does not seem safe to me. I know that, it always looks weird. The optics of it just looks so weird.
Can I say something about that? I asked the police about it, and they said it was to help people to get used to and be comfortable around militarized. They didn't use the word militarized, but to be around armed. Yeah.
Are they allowed to use the gun? What, like, can they shoot the ball or can they pistol? Oh, sorry. We should stop recording.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't have to drop off the call, but I'm going to hit record. This is always the most fun part of Council Club. You people who are watching on YouTube, you should join us next week. Good day.